This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. There are sacred fires burning tonight to honor 4 Indigenous women, all victims of homicide. One man, Jeremy Skibicki, has been charged with first-degree murder in each of their deaths. The CBC's Alana Cole shows us how the community grieves for the women, including one whose identity is still unknown.
This is where dozens of people gathered last night. Pictures of Morgan Harris lit by candlelight, her daughter, Cambria, there to honor her.
I think it's sad that time and time again that we have to keep coming here to gather for sad circumstances like this when our family members go missing, and it shouldn't have to be that way.
Morgan was a mother and a grandmother. Cambria says they searched for 9 months hoping to find her. Now, police believe she's one of 4 Indigenous women who fell victim to 35-year-old Jeremy Skibicki. He was charged first in the death of Rebecca Contois in May. Then yesterday, police revealed he's been charged in the death of 39-year-old Morgan Harris, 26-year-old Mercedes Myron, and another victim that hasn't been identified but is believed to be in her mid-20s. Remains from the 3 latest victims announced by police haven't been found.
My mother deserves to come home. We deserve to have her remains, and so do the other families.
Cambria wants police to search the Brady landfill, where remains of Contois were found. Today, the police chief said too much time has passed. It's believed the women were killed months ago.
We believe that it's likely the remains of these other victims are in the landfill. We just have no ability to know where that is and where to commence a search.
But police have released a photo of this reversible jacket, and they're hoping it will at least help to identify the unknown victim. On Selkirk Avenue, near a sacred fire, that's what Daryl Contois says he's going to try to do. He's spent years helping families search for their missing loved ones.
She's a somebody. Even though she's gone, she's still somebody. Somebody loves her, somebody cares for her.
A way to help as the community tries to come to terms with another tragedy. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The accused killer, Jeremy Skibicki, was in court today. CBC's Holly Carrick was there.
Jeremy Skibicki entered the courtroom wearing a gray T-shirt and sweats, his feet and hands in shackles. The 35-year-old has a shaved head and a long goatee beard. 4 charges of first-degree murder were read aloud to the court. Skibicki was already facing first-degree murder charges for the killing of Rebecca Contois in May. On Thursday, police announced Skibicki is believed to have killed 3 more Indigenous women. He's been in custody since his arrest on May 18th. Contois' family were in the courtroom today. Some of them wore T-shirts with her face on them, saying justice for Rebecca. Her family issued a statement later today saying the family has experienced paralyzing grief in the last few months, but they wanted to send condolences to the other families. Skibicki is also accused of killing 39-year-old Morgan Harris, 26-year-old Mercedes Myron, and another woman who is yet to be identified. Police believe all the women were killed between March and May of this year. Only Contois' remains have been found. The charges were laid as a direct indictment, meaning it will bypass preliminary hearings and head straight to trial. Skibicki's lawyer says his client will plead not guilty on all charges. Holly Carrick, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Stories like this can be triggering for some in our community. Support is available for anyone upset by the details of this case. If you need someone to talk with, you can call the numbers on your screen. They're also at the bottom of the story you'll find on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. This has been a day of special programming here at CBC Manitoba, which you'll know if you've listened to any of our local radio shows today. This is our annual day to make the season kind, a fundraising drive for Harvest Manitoba. Almost 70% of food bank users in Manitoba this year have been women. The reasons vary from person to person, but as CBC's Andrew Wilds found, they all needed one thing: help.
calling Harvest Manitoba.
It's a call she never expected to make, but hunger changes things. We're not revealing her identity because she left an abusive relationship and she's concerned for her safety. This woman says overnight she went from a household income of over $100,000 a year to not knowing where her next meal would come from.
I walked away from a marriage of 10 years with no savings in the bank, no money to my name, and just debt. And it just baffles me how I ended up in that position.
After she left, she says she worked long hours as a healthcare aide, but she has credit card debt from her marriage and no spousal support. She needed somewhere to live and gas to get to work.
It got to the point where I had pretty much no money in my bank account and I had to wait 3 days until payday, and I was eating ramen noodles just to survive.
That's when she searched online for Harvest Manitoba and made this call.
If you need food, press 1.
They didn't ask me any questions like, why do you need food or anything like that. I just explained that I need help.
Every month, tens of thousands of people across Manitoba turn to food banks to help them fight hunger. The bulk of them are women. Harvest Manitoba says many of the women who use their service face significant employment barriers.
Not having having well-paying jobs, being the caregiver of their families, more precarious work, so not consistent work, as their male counterparts may have.
Megan Urbus says many women who want to work can't because childcare is so expensive.
Last year we asked women what was a barrier to employment for them, and they said that childcare was, and that same statistic carried over to this year's report.
This woman says she has nothing to spare. She's learning new recipes to see where she can save. She says starting over is hard, but thanks to Harvest, it's possible.
It gave me hope, and it gave me the ability to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to know that there are people that care.
It's a light many continue to look to as they try to find their way to the end of tough situations. Andrew Wiles, CBC News, Winnipeg.
You will see more about Harvest Manitoba and the people it touches throughout this program. But first, more news from our city. RCMP and Winnipeg Police want you to know they're teaming up to get the word out. Do not drink and drive. Tomorrow is National Impaired Driving Enforcement Day. Officers will be out on the streets in our province targeting intoxicated drivers in the city and also in rural Manitoba. Police are urging people to make a plan to get home safely if you're attending a holiday party. They say getting behind the wheel when drunk or when high can have dire consequences. Last year, RCMP took more than 1,300 impaired drivers off the road. One of Winnipeg's oldest restaurants says it's threatened by someone else's idea, which could impact its future. A Starbucks is the threat. The Thunderbird, a landmark on McPhillip Street, is trying to pour hot water on a grande plan to put the coffee franchise next door. CBC's Bartley Kivas has the story.
When the Thunderbird opened in 1961, there was little besides farmers' fields around this restaurant on McPhillip Street.
At that time, there was not much to do out here.
Albert Kolchicki has been coming here once a week since the 1960s.
We used to sit there for hours and then John would kick us out or something, eh? Say, you guys aren't spending enough money here, so it's time to leave.
The well used to supply the city of Winnipeg.
John is John Janakis. He and his son Peter own the property, while the Tang family owns and operates the restaurant. But a lot has changed since the 60s.
The Thunderbird was an island amongst Farmers Field in 1961. It's now an island amongst parking lots and streets that will be in the future inaccessible to us.
Janakis is worried about this, plans for a Starbucks drive-thru to the immediate south of Thunderbird. Janakis claims this would deprive the restaurant of parking it's used for decades.
We believe that people still come in, but at the end of the day, we're going to be fighting a losing battle.
Janakis also claims delivery trucks won't be able to access Thunderbird.
It's a problem not only for us, it's a problem for all the customers that come here, the people that drive by in the corner of Jefferson McPhillips every day.
Janakis claims Thunderbird had an easement deal for decades to access this supermarket parking lot. But a court determined that deal doesn't exist. In March, Court of Queen's Bench Justice Vic Taves wrote Thunderbird's use of this parking lot was on the basis of neighborly accommodation with the permission of the landholder. Taves suggested the two sides ought to work out a deal. Janakis insists the easement agreement was real. He surmises it got lost in the early 70s when the city of Winnipeg absorbed the old RM of Old Kildonan. But the lawyer for the Starbucks development says even if the deal existed, it's not enforceable. The supermarket has changed hands 3 times over the past 60 years. This leaves Janakis wanting to buy a strip of land. Selling the Thunderbird isn't an option.
My dad's an independent business guy. He grew up in an era where there's lots of independent business guys, and every day he looks around, there's one less independent business guy. His theory is if we all sell to Starbucks, who's going to be left?
In September, City Council's Property Committee rejected plans for the Starbucks. A final decision is expected from Executive Policy Committee in January. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An Israeli luthier and his son have spent years collecting and restoring violins that belong to victims of the Holocaust. Their project is called Violins of Hope. Tomorrow night, the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra will tell the story of this powerful endeavor and feature 2 of these restored instruments, one of which has a Canadian connection. The Hecht violin once belonged to a Jewish violinist named Fanny Hecht. In 1942, as the Nazis were arresting Jewish families in Amsterdam, Mrs. Hecht gave her 200-year-old violin to a neighbor for safekeeping. Not long after, the Hecht family was arrested and never heard from again. The neighbor's daughter eventually moved to Canada with that treasured violin. Decades later, her son and daughter-in-law researched the Hecht family and learned they'd all died in Nazi camps. That's when they donated the instrument to Violins of Hope.
We're so excited for my mother-in-law. She turns 88 on December 14th. This will probably be the last trip she will make to be able to see the violin and to hear it being played. So she's overjoyed to be able to be here. And we are thrilled that she is still able to see and hear the violin being played once again and being returned to its rightful place.
Helena Bossi, the neighbor's daughter who kept this beautiful violin safe, as you just heard, is 88. She lives in Calgary, but she has traveled to Winnipeg with her son and the woman you just saw, her daughter-in-law, to attend tomorrow night's concert. After the concert, the Hecht violin will be on display until March at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. CBC Saskatchewan weather specialist Heather Morrison is once again keeping an eye on Manitoba's forecast for us. Heather?
Thank you, Janet. Well, it's going to be an interesting weekend in Manitoba, that's for sure. Let's take a look at what's going on right now in the province. So as you can see, we're just seeing that North Dakota low that was dusting over the southeast portion of the province, bringing that blowing snow into Winnipeg and area. It has just cleared. So let's take a look at what's going to happen tomorrow. So waking up to a fairly clear day, some cloudy skies, but not too much precipitation. And then about midday there, you can see we're going to have a system move in from northwest of Saskatchewan, and it's going to just be bringing in this small little system that's going to move over the center of the province. Going to be really focused on the right at the north end of Lake Winnipeg, bringing a little bit of snow. That's going to clear, but take a look at what's happening over Saskatchewan. We've got this giant low that's making its way southeast on the province, and it's coming down, and boom, there it is. It's going to arrive in Manitoba on Sunday morning, bringing with it quite a bit of snow. The darker the color there is the more snow that you are going to get. Now that's going to clear up by Monday. So let's take a look in terms of snowfall amounts. Not too bad, but we can see all the way up in the northern area we get up to 7 centimeters, about 5 centimeters in Winnipeg, which is enough to do a little bit of shoveling, that's for sure. Now, the second half of the story in terms of weather is really what's happening in temperature here. So this is the upper atmosphere. You can see that purple, the dark blues, that's where that cold Arctic air is, and it's really been trying to make its way into our province for a while now. So you can see that it really finally gets settled in on Saturday, and that's when we're going to see our lowest temperatures of the week, and it's going to settle in and then finally move on. So what does this mean temperature wise? Well, let's take a look now. So this is what we're sitting at around right now. We're going to drop overnight. You can see those purples, those blues come in, and then take a look at this. As we go through the day on Saturday, we don't actually warm up that much, and that's because we've got that cold air that is locked over our province. And then finally Sunday, when that low pressure arrives with all that snow, we also get some warmer air moving in. So let's take a look here at the 7-day forecast for Winnipeg. As you can see, Saturday, very chilly day, -15. It's about 8 degrees below normal for a high. We've got a 60% chance of those flurries coming Saturday evening, running into Sunday. And then, you know what, after we get that little bit of warm up, it's going to get cold again. As you can see, Monday, we might be having a little bit of snow Monday. It's not showing there, but it was on the map. And then we drop right back down into those cold temperatures that are well below normal for this time of year. So Janet, that is a look at your weather forecast. Should be an interesting weekend.
The weather update is brought to you by Home Equip, your trusted local source for Pride Mobility scooters. From sales to rental and repair, our team is here to serve you.
If you've been listening to our CBC radio programs today, you've heard him on the air all day long. This is Vince Barletta. He is CEO of Harvest Manitoba. How are you feeling about Make the Season Kind?
Well, for us at Harvest, it's really the start of the holidays, but you know, it's been a tough time for a lot of Manitobans. We've seen a record number of folks turning to food banks all across our province.
And everything is so expensive, it's probably more expensive for you as well.
Well, it's been tough. You know, inflation's been hurting a lot of families. I mean, when times are tough, it's always those that have the least that hurt the most. We're seeing that right now in food bank use all across Manitoba. But of course, for Harvest too, that inflation impacts us. We have to pay our staff, put fuel in our trucks, and we're buying more food than ever before to meet the record demand. So the inflation hits all of us pretty hard.
How many people do you feed?
So at this point in time, we're serving 15,000 households each and every month all across Manitoba. That's about 40,000 people a month.
Wow. What is your message for Manitobans?
Well, the message is we need people who can to give. And the reality is you can give your food, you can give your funds, or you can give your time to support those Manitobans in need. And you know, these are folks that live in all of our communities, folks just like you and me, and we need the support of Manitobans to keep them fed this holiday season.
We've had a couple of people who have, they're first-time users of the food bank, and they've been brave enough to share their stories with us, open. I mean, there are times, we all know it in life, when we all need a hand. There's no shame in asking for help.
There's no shame in asking for help, and you know, the reality is that could be you or me. You could be one tragedy away, one job loss away, one injury away from being in a line at a food bank. And so that's what I always say to Manitobans: if you and your family are doing okay and this holiday season you can do it, please think about supporting your local food banks. Think about supporting Harvest Manitoba.
Vince Barletta, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Donation lines, by the way, are still open. They'll be open until 7:30 tonight, and as of 5 to 6, they've raised $305,000. Thank you for your generosity. Still ahead, chilly outside, but we've had hot musical performances all day long with musicians sharing their talents to help Harvest. We'll be back with national news, but as we head to break, here's salsa group Tria Bombay.
Antes de anoche, bailando con él, una muchacha le dio un pisotón y el enfadado pegó el grito al cielo, dice en el suelo aprenda a bailar. Miguel, Miguel, ¿qué tiene Miguel? No sé por qué no baila el bembe. Miguel, Miguel, ¿qué tiene Miguel? No sé por qué no baila el Miguel. Ay, Miguel, 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 ¿por qué no baila Miguel?
Trio Bombay there helping us make the season kind. Thank you, Trio Bombay. Canada's economy added a modest 10,000 jobs last month. Nationally, the unemployment rate went down slightly to 5.1%. It dipped a bit in Manitoba, too, to 4.4%. But as Nisha Patel explains, the number that it seems to impact day-to-day life the most, inflation, remains stubbornly high.
At Toronto's St. Lawrence Market, businesses are desperate for workers.
We are functioning like with one dishwasher where we're open 14 hours a day. You can't have one person working 14 hours a day.
And as the busy holiday season approaches, they need more staff to stay up and running.
Or they show up for the interview, they get the job, they don't show up for the job, or they just no response at all. It's been very difficult.
But while some sectors were hiring last month, like finance and manufacturing, others were firing.
So we're expecting a pretty rough year in terms of the tech sector and the broader economy over the next 12 months.
Tech firms have seen a sharp slowdown this year. Communitech just laid off 10% of its staff as it prepares for tough times.
I've been through a whole bunch of recessions before, and I think pretty sober about you got to work a little bit harder.
But for those companies still trying to attract workers, many have to offer higher pay. Average hourly wages rose by 5.6% to more than $32 an hour in November, compared to the same time a year ago. While many paychecks still aren't keeping up with the cost of living, it marks 6 months of wage gains that are above 5%, something policymakers are watching closely.
The Bank of Canada is going to look at this labor market as still too tight, still too hot for its comfort.
Steep wage gains and robust jobs growth came in south of the border, too, where U.S. employers added 263,000 jobs last month, despite the central bank's recent efforts to cool the economy with aggressive interest rate hikes.
They've already raised rates a lot, and a lot of the impact of that on employment won't show up until we move further into 2023.
So with a labor market that remains resilient, the pressure on central banks continues, with economists predicting interest rates will go up again next week. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
A top advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says up to 13,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed in the war, and fighting remains intense between Ukrainian and Russian forces, with losses on both sides climbing higher by the day. CBC's Abby Kubadasan reports.
An advisor to President Zelensky says that between 10 and 13,000 Ukrainian troops have been killed since Russia invaded in February. Mikhailo Podolyak says Zelensky will speak about that further when the time is right. The Ukrainian armed forces have not yet confirmed this figure. It is worth noting that just last month, the United States' top general, Mark Milley, estimated that about 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers had been killed and wounded. Now, France and the United States showing their support for Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron says he will speak with Vladimir Putin in the coming days, but the U.S. president says he has no plans to reach out to Moscow at this time.
I'm prepared to speak with Mr. Putin if, in fact, there is an interest in him deciding he's looking for a way to end the war. He hasn't done that yet, but I'll only do it in consultation with my NATO allies.
The Kremlin has responded to Biden's comments, saying there can be no basis for talks until Washington recognizes Russia's newly annexed territories. Kyiv has repeatedly declared it will fight until every inch of its land is back under Ukrainian control. And the United States has also made it clear its support for Ukraine is unwavering. Abby Kuadasan, CBC News, London.
Among Canada's for-profit career colleges, CDI College is one of the largest. But a CBC Marketplace investigation has found many former students report huge letdowns. Travis Danroush has more.
My first thought was, am I going to die in my 20s?
Carly Hall received life-altering news while enrolled in CDI College last year.
I was diagnosed with cervical cancer.
How did it affect your studies?
Every time I would open my laptop and start doing something, I would have a minor panic attack.
Hall wanted to pause her online studies to undergo treatment. The college said that's not possible. She withdrew, but is told she still owes over $19,000 based on their refund policy.
To essentially not approve a leave request that seems like legitimate, and then to use that as a tuition grab seems pretty unfair to me.
We found hundreds of complaints about the college online, about the cost of dropping out, and others regarding misleading claims about accreditation, high-pressure tactics to enroll, and thousands in debt after students withdraw.
What kind of employer was CDI?
Horrible.
Adam Pollock is a former admissions representative turned whistleblower. He says helping students get higher education wasn't the goal. Recruiting and locking in as many as possible was.
The targets were minimal 2 enrollments a week.
Okay, so how many calls are you making to try to...
Minimal 100 calls a day.
What would happen to people who couldn't produce?
They'd be fired.
Marketplace has been investigating CDI College for months now. We have reached out to CDI multiple times for an interview with CEO Peter Chung or anyone from the college. However, they won't give us one. In the 90s, the state of California sued Chung and others over the operations of a private college Chung opened in that state. The allegations include misleading students. In 2012, Chung denied wrongdoing. For its part, CDI has not addressed the specific findings of CBC's investigation. In statements, they tell us employees may do things the company doesn't condone and say they're aware of issues and are always working to improve. Travis Stanrash, CBC News, Toronto.
You can watch the full investigation called Getting Schooled, Investigating CDI College, tonight at 8 here on CBC TV or anytime on CBC Gem. A group of students in Quebec is finding a way to soar using music. The young artists created a song called They Fly, and they did so with the help of an Indigenous-led not-for-profit organization which works to amplify the voices of Indigenous youth. Here's the story of the talented four in their own words.
Been learning and I wish you knew that we're not alone. I'm feeling stronger. Just take me higher. Fuel to my fire is a sky that's filled with colors.
It really got me in touch with how I feel about Indigenous and then the issues that surround it and our voices. I found that it really helped me get in touch with all that. I think Native representation on screen is very important for young Native Indigenous children to see that they can really become something. I found that it really pushed my boundaries. My confidence is boosted. I feel just more confident.
I'm a young soul, just starting the journey. So many possibilities as part of the learning.
I really wanted to participate in this because, you don't usually see mixed natives or natives with, blue eyes or super pale skin represented on TV or just anywhere. We all each had kind of our own thing we wanted to talk about. And then in the center of the song is They Fly. And it's, we are all starting to have new opportunities. It helped a lot because I don't really have very many Native friends. So, to get to be with other Indigenous people that are not my family, to kind of learn more about Indigenous culture.
The Prince and Princess of Wales are wrapping up their visit in Boston. It's their first overseas trip since the death of Queen Elizabeth. The CBC's Chris Reyes has more on their 3-day visit.
The Prince and Princess of Wales wrap up their Boston visit today, their first overseas trip since the Queen died, their first U.S. visit in 8 years. It's been a 3-day tour around the city, mostly meeting with community groups who are fighting climate change. But the main purpose of the trip is to host this glitzy gala for the Earthshot Prize, which hands out £1 million to individuals and organizations with the best climate solutions. It was founded by Prince William in 2020. The first award ceremony happened in London last year. This one happening at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway. Now, the royal couple has not talked to media during this trip. Prince William gave a brief statement at City Hall when he first landed, all of it focused on the environment. And while they've been able to control their message here in Boston, that's not been the case everywhere else, with many talking about recent racist allegations against his family in the UK. Yesterday, his brother, Prince Harry, Duchess Meghan, dropped a dramatic trailer for their Netflix docu-series talking about the trauma that they experienced as royals. Now, for the fans that I talked to here on the ground, they're not concerned about that. All they seem to want to do is to catch a glimpse of the future king and queen.
I'm from Jamaica, and we've always observed, you know, the monarchy, and it's nice to be able to come out and support.
I'm super excited. Like, I don't know, I feel like Boston isn't always, you know, the kind of place you'd see like really well-known people around. It's usually like New York or LA.
I like a lot of what they're doing. The reason why they're here for their environmental work. I think it's, you know, great, you know, to be here, and especially in Boston.
While this has been far from a political trip, Prince William did meet with U.S. President Joe Biden. It was a last-minute ad. Biden was already scheduled to be in Boston. Celebrities will be attending the Earthshot Prize Gala, including Catherine O'Hara, Billie Eilish, Ellie Goulding, and that will officially wrap up the royal visit. Chris Reyes, CBC News, Boston.
And now we head to break with more music from the musicians who came into CBC Manitoba to help with our special Make the Season Kind broadcasts. The Globe and Mail has just named Cassidy Mann one of 5 Indigenous artists changing our sonic landscape. Here is Cassidy, accompanied by Sophie Stevens.
You brought me jewelry home from your trip, Orlando earrings and thunderstorm lips. I wore 'em out to a date with a friend. She's going through something and you're gone again. If you were here, I'd cry on your chest. We talked till we had no energy left. The highest of highs, lowest of lows, spending my time wondering where it all goes. reminds me of how good you could be. I'm perfect at pretending, oh, that's nothing new. And I don't want it all back, I'm just missing parts of you.
Cassidy Mann and Sophie Stevens. Welcome back to our special day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba. Harvest Manitoba, that's right. As the demand for help grows at food banks across our province, many ordinary people are stepping up in extraordinary ways. Among them, many who've experienced the pain of hunger themselves. Andrew Wiles shares this story from Steinbach.
These sandwiches were donated to feed homeless people, but someone has to plate them and warm them. They'll go great with chili, but someone has to make it. Donna Swarzinski is glad she gets to do it. Not long ago, she was the one homeless and hungry.
I know that I felt alone often in my situations and embarrassed, ashamed.
She turned to Steinbach Community Outreach for help for herself and her 12-year-old daughter.
I remember that first meal that I had, I burnt it. I left it in the oven too long because I was distracted. But that meal tasted the best meal I've ever had in my entire life because I hadn't eaten in a couple days, so yeah.
Swarzinski used to own her own restaurant. Now she's pouring her skills into serving others as a volunteer here, up to 4 days a week.
Well, not only is it my purpose, but I feel that if I could help one person like I've been helped, then that would make life easier for everyone.
Irene Craker founded the outreach 15 years ago. She says seeing people like Swarzinski go from clients to volunteers keeps her going.
Gosh, I don't even have a word for it, how good it makes us feel.
Craker says they rely on more than 100 volunteers to get everything done. Without them, it would be a disaster for those in need.
We are the only organization in Steinbach that deals specifically with the very vulnerable and the homeless in our community. And so if they couldn't come here, where would they go?
The province's largest food bank network, Harvest Manitoba, released its report on the state of hunger in Manitoba yesterday. Since 2019, the amount of people using food banks in Winnipeg has doubled. That's partly due to inflation. But those prices have gone up right across the province. Swarzinski says she knows how hard it can be to ask for help. She's sharing her story so others will know it's okay to do so.
The reason these food banks are here and Steinbach Community Outreach is here is to help people. Just know that you're not alone.
For many, it's a message of hope they desperately need to hear. Andrew Wiles, CBC News, Steinbach.
In fact, in its 38-year history, Harvest Manitoba has never seen demand for its services rise so much in 1 year. 40% to be exact. A new bi-weekly food bank at its Winnipeg Avenue headquarters here in Winnipeg is one way it's trying to keep up with demand. Every second Thursday, about 40 people from the neighborhood come through the doors of a newly built community room to shop for free food. CBC's Corey Funk takes us there.
Harvest Manitoba, we opened a food bank recently. It's called the Winnipeg Avenue Food Bank. It's where we're located because we noticed that there was a need in the area. During the pandemic, lots of food banks opened up, lots of food banks closed, and this was one of those areas in which we needed folks to have access.
I came here to help one of my Ukrainian kids. They came from Ukraine a month ago. I know what they're going through because 23 years ago, I did the same story. I came to Canada.
We are seeing folks for the first time, a lot of folks that are coming from the Ukraine that are now finding homes here in Manitoba. So we're seeing a lot of folks like that. We're also seeing, people that haven't used our food bank in a while coming back to us because of things like rising food costs, rising housing costs, trying to balance whether or not they should purchase food or whether they should pay for rent. Those are some of the challenges that our community face every day.
So once a month, we come here to the Harvest, which is really helping us for the few things that, sometimes you cannot afford to get it. And we are retired seniors, and we are so lucky and happy to come here.
Harvest is necessary for me because I am worried in this moment, but no, I don't I don't have the money for buy all the products. For me, it's a very important help for me and my family.
Previously, we were doing around 10,000 households rather, a month, and now we're doing 15,000 households a month. So the need is increasing pretty much every month.
A good place to pick some groceries because my husband and I, we need some help, but I think there is a good option for newcomers.
I enjoy working the front counter. I enjoy working, here. I get to meet lots of people. It could be the difference between eating and not eating. The amount of money you get on disability does not come even close to what the new rising prices are for things. And, that hasn't increased in years.
I love this city and these kind of programs. I don't know, because in Mexico, there isn't anything like Harvest.
Thank you. This help, my family and me is very, very thank you.
I'm very thankful because we have Harvest to help everybody that what they need, they provide for us.
Harvest helps people, but we need to help Harvest. Jerry Serrata is a singer-songwriter who grew up near Dauphin, and he's been helping us make the season kind today. Here he is, rocking around the Christmas tree.
You will get a sentimental feeling when you hear the voices singing, let's be jolly, deck the halls with boughs of holly, rocking around Christmas tree, the happy holiday. Everyone's dancing merrily in the new old-fashioned way. rocking around the Christmas tree. Have a happy holiday. Everyone's dancing merrily in the new old-fashioned way.
Jerry Serrata. Leo Kahn is a newcomer refugee studying at the University of Winnipeg. Like a lot of university students right now, he works hard to cover the cost of schooling, rent, and put food on the table. He was grateful to learn about Harvest Manitoba, but also surprised to see how many people needed it. Leo Kahn shares his story with CBC Manitoba here in his own words.
After arriving as a newcomer refugee and starting a new life and education, while still on the way towards my independence, I felt the need to use the food bank. On a sunny and pleasant summer morning, I took my bicycle to go and collect my part from a food bank. As I arrived, I observed people walking towards the building where the food was being distributed. There were many people bringing food bags to load in their vehicles and leave for their homes. New to Winnipeg and unaware of the challenges this society has been facing, it was unbelievably surprising for me to see so many people standing in the lines. All were here because of the high food insecurity in this country, which has a very prosperous image in underdeveloped countries. My curious nature made me to ask a question from those people who had lived in this country for several generations. What do you think of immigrants, especially refugees, who come here to build a life? From their positive answers, I understood that despite financial instability and increasing food prices, these people have big and welcoming hearts for people like me. I told everyone there that I came here as an Afghan refugee and I am feeling proud to be here in this country where local people are welcoming regardless of all the problems. What I observed and received was the expression of happiness, love and welcoming smiles. Those friendly talks, happy faces and generous behavior made me feel very proud to be an Afghan Canadian. I saw more and more people arriving, but unfortunately the food seemed insufficient. This is what I also heard from the staff of the food bank. After further communication with people in the community and reading about the history of hunger in Canada, I understood that the need of food banks has increased immensely. This web of non-profit organizations that gather and distribute foods among needy Canadians require more support to help ease hunger across our country. To live healthy, work continuously and do well at school or university, the ability to purchase proper food is crucially important. For many young Canadians, paying for both their education and accommodation makes it difficult to afford adequate and nutritious food. Therefore, the access to food through charity organizations play an important role in the lives of young people as well as families. I wish to see a Canada in the future where there is prosperity, where everyone has access to healthy food. This dream requires all of us to work hard as individuals and as a community.
I love that dream. Leo Kahn sharing his story. As we head to break, here's a new total for you. $318,216 has so far been raised to help Harvest Manitoba on this special day of Make the Season Kind. Thank you for your generosity. Remember, the phone lines are open until 7:30. You can also donate online if you can. As we head to break, more music from the Winnipeg-based salsa group Trio Bombay.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Well, it doesn't show signs of stopping, and I brought some corn for Pop. Oh, the weather outside is frightful. It's -12 and it feels like -23. Outside there is some light snow and the wind gusting to 43. Cha cha cha.
Thank you, Trio Bombay. Taking a look at your 7-day forecast, it's going to be very cold tonight and windy. We've got some sunshine for your Saturday, but snow coming in on your Sunday. Monday is very chilly as well, and a chance of flurries again on Tuesday. Look at the cold temperatures for midweek, getting down to like highs of -21 on Thursday. Ooh, time to start plugging in the car. Finally tonight, we're off to Nova Scotia to meet the star of the Lunenburg Curling Club. The CBC's Colleen Jones has your daily lift.
How often do you come to the curling club?
Tuesday and Thursday, every week.
Jean McKeel's pulling into the parking lot at the Lunenburg Curling Club.
And you took this up late, did you?
When I was 80.
If you didn't know, taking up any sport at 80 is just not common.
What do you like about curling?
I just love it because I'm not one of these people that can sit still and do nothing.
Get in there. Let's see how good you are.
But here she is at 92, going strong. Game time. She's playing second stone. One of her teammates, Haley Ollenbach, is 31. She and Jean are sweeping the rock. Haley is the youngest on the ice, and Jean, 61 years older, is still leaping over rocks.
Nice hopping over the rocks.
I want to know if I'm the oldest woman in curling.
She just has fun. She likes the exercise. She likes to sweep. And she makes shots. That's right.
Now, Jean used to have a traditional curling slide, but 2 years ago she took a nasty fall on the ice outside of the curling rink on an icy, snowy day. It left her with a broken jaw and a broken finger, and while others might think of throwing in the towel, not Jean.
Nice shot, Jean.
Because her broken finger didn't heal properly, she simply switched to stick curling. Give this up? Never.
Absolute joy, because I've got a lot of friends here, and when you're alone, you need friends. And some of the people here have done absolutely amazing things.
By the way, can she shoot?
She does. Put us behind the 8 ball all the time. That's a nice shot. Tell me what you think of Jean. She's amazing, even for her age, or whether she's young or old. She's just an amazing person.
Amazing, yes. And for Jean McKeel, age is truly just a number. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Lunenburg.
Age is just a number. She didn't start curling until she was 80, so there's still time for me. There's still time for you, too, to help Harvest Manitoba if you can. Have a fabulous weekend. Stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you on Monday. Good night.